Hello friends, I'm Marlon. This is MV Pittman Cross Sim Racing. If you don't know, I hang out on the Grays Dynamics Discord, and I'm a lot like a teenager there. I hang out, I don't pay rent, I eat all the food, and then one day I'll realize how good I had it, so I'll come back after I'm a new adult. So there was a question there about the Cube Controls Zero Rim in rubber. One of the members there asked, "How is it? What's it like? I saw it for cheap and thought I'd pick it up." And I answered because that's what I do, but hopefully I answered out of experience. This is the Cube Controls GT version 2 Pro, and it currently has the Zero Rim mounted. They call it rubber, but this is actually polyurethane, which, I guess is rubber, but it's different than that. And so today I plan on comparing it to a few rims. Not planning on reviewing this button box today, but I'll tell you a little bit about it as we go through that. Also, one of the things that can affect the way that you enjoy this rim is what you're putting on your hands. So obviously now I have bare hands, and I feel like the grip is good. As you hold it, as you drive, it gives you a little bit of squish, but it's still quite firm. So it's not quite like a 3D printed rim or something that might have, I guess, a stiffer feel. A lot of people, when they drive, they grip really hard and they need that squish so that their hands don't fatigue. Obviously you could develop a better way of holding your rim, but most people just grab it and drive and aren't really interested in developing the light hands technique so that their steering can improve. So zero rim, good, yes, but it may not be for you depending on how you grip the wheel. One of the things that I like most about this kind of open top rim is that if you're using a button box or something like that, you can see the DDU up there on top. So let's talk a little bit about the box, what kind of gloves you might use, and then compare it to a few other rims. So the button box, you can change what rim you're using on this button box. So the zero rim by itself is an option, and you can use that zero rim on any button box. So if you're using, say, perhaps the Picorni GTB Pro that I identified in an earlier video, you can put that rim on this button box. On this rim, I have something that is more of a silicone grip, and this rim is a little wider. So what happens when you use this instead of this, see if I can get them both in frame. There you go. This one is 310 millimeters. I believe this is 300. So 300 millimeter rim, polyurethane, a little bit of squish. There's some texture on it, so it's not quite ultra smooth in the way that this one is. This is silicone. Drops a little bit lower, not straight across the top. 6 holes. The biggest thing that I do not like about the Cube Controls rim is that when you get this rim, button box goes behind it and there are 2 holes. They are necessary for this button box, but if you put a different button box on it, the holes can be unattractive or they may be obscured. So if you have some other rim, some other button box, or you use a button box that goes in front of it, that affects the way that you might be using this. The Picorni GTB goes on top of this. So what you're going to see is that these flick switches won't be on that button box, and you'll be fine. You won't be able to see the holes. However, if you use another button box, like say this one, this is the GSI Interlock. If you use something like this button box, it does mount behind the rim, so you're going to have a couple of holes just exposed. It's not going to hurt anything. So I don't want you to think that, for some reason that zero rim is just unacceptable. Unacceptable is not what the way I would describe these holes. What I would describe them as is unfortunate. And that's just part of the design of the button box. If you look at some of their older button boxes from Cube Controls, they have flick switches outside of the rim or not at all. And I think that's a design choice. And I do think that these flick switches, when they're closer to the center, are a little bit more accessible. If you are holding the rim like this, see if I can get it in frame with my thumb, your thumb can reach that pretty easily. So rather than if they're up here, you've got to choose amongst your buttons and your encoder. So that can be a bit of a thing. The button box itself, the rim positions your hands in a place where it's easy to grab clutches. The position along in line with the shaft is good. So yeah, is this a good rim? Yes. Caveats being you might not like the holes, you might not like the way your hands grip on it, you might use bare hands, or you might use something different like gloves. So I have 3 different things here. This is the discount retailer fitness glove that honestly, this is probably the best value in sim racing. Well, maybe not. But if you're looking for gloves and you're not looking to spend $20 or $100 or depending on whatever it is that you feel like you need FIA rated racing gloves that will keep your hands from burning up if your car catches on fire, you don't really need that for sim racing. One of the things that I think is good is that you have choice. So something like this keeps your fingers intact if you need a tactile feeling on your buttons when you want to make sure that you get button presses. Fingerless fitness gloves are great. You might use something like these. These are football gloves. So if you've seen the interactions online where people are trying to make impressions for scouts, football players, what these do is add a little bit of texture, or in this case, a lot of texture all over your palm. And they also have some padding. So I don't know what kind of driving you're doing where you're banging up against stuff, but sometimes gloves are, they're a preference. But I like these, but they are not, they're breathable. They have holes, but they're not terribly cool if you're racing in a hot environment. Maybe you're in your garage or something like that. So I don't want to tell you what to do, but I like these. The hard thing about these also came from the discount store, and if you look at it, it says 5XL, which is crazy, man. My hands are not 5XL, but gloves fit the way they fit, and your hand size doesn't change. So sometimes you got to get a few pairs and find out what you need. Those fitness gloves I had are actually just a regular XL. Maybe they're 2XL. I'll grab them and take a look. So yeah, these are just regular XL. So the difference between those can be massive. The zero rim, good. A silicone rim, if you ask me, better. I think that the grip without gloves is good. If you are a GSI fan, and I know a lot of you are, and you think whatever GSI makes must be the best, and as I hope you know, best is subjective, best is relative. So these are the Aero long sleeve gloves from GSI. I also think they're great, and whether or not they're your favorite, that just depends on you. But if you like GSI and you think that their gloves are great, you get options. Options are good. I think the feel of these gloves can be difficult if your rim is super, super, super grippy. Grippy enough that your hands will slide inside which you may or may not want. Most people are gripping, they're not like sliding their hands across. But if you are repositioning your hand rather than just moving it across buttons, that sliding might be important. Gloves can prevent that sliding, or at least make a more textured feel so that you're not sliding your hand around. If for some reason you need to move your hand, you usually move your entire hand. You're usually not sliding it down to hit a button and then sliding it back up. Usually you just remove your hand. Well, I don't know. Depends on whether you're doing light touch or not. Light touch, you're just going to move your hand. If you're death gripping and then all of a sudden you decide, you might need less texture, and a bare hand might work on that. In addition to button boxes, and if you're looking at the Zero Rim, some other things that you might want to compare it to, this is the Turn Racing. I guess they call it something else than what it was originally. So before it was like a R20, but this is now the R305. So it is 305 millimeters. They also have one that is an R320, which is 320 millimeters. So a lot wider, not necessarily any deeper. But comparing the Zero Rim to something like this, and grab the wheel, they're about the same size. And obviously you can use this with any button box, as I mentioned before. But, you know, they have that same material. I don't know if this is actually polyurethane, but as you compare it to something like the Zero Rim, you have that same kind of texture that's a little smoother, doesn't make your hands move inside your glove, which is nice. You can get this in a larger size, which may or may help with other button boxes, but 300 is, you know, probably about as big as you really need. Anything smaller is going to be like a formula size, and much bigger, you know, you're going to have that big wide turn radius, which, you know, for the things you do, it's a GT wheel. It's not a formula wheel that might be like this. Although I guess you could put a button box on here and pretend it's a formula wheel. Maybe one of those old style formula rims. So yeah, comparison between the Zero Rim and this, I'd say they're about the same. Obviously you don't get the holes. So, you know, if you want to use this rim on this particular button box, then you are going to need to drill some holes. Most button boxes don't have holes like that, so not too many things to worry about. I do think that this is really hard to get now. Turn Racing is now defunct, so one of the ways in which you would get this would be like eBay, or you know somebody, or you hang out on the Grace Dynamics forums and hope someone is selling this. Not selling mine just yet, so if you really need it and you have deep pockets, contact me and I'll decide whether I'd exchange this for your money. But there are other rims that you can use with this. If you don't want to buy a deep pocketed necessity rim, you can get something like this. This is from Amazon and it comes in all sorts of names, but comparing this, it's a lot bigger. I believe this is closer to 325 millimeters. So as you compare it to something like this, it's bigger. It's taller, it's lower, it's wider. So if you hold these up, the GT Zero Rim, you know, you can see that it sits behind this, but you can still see the top, you can still see the bottom through the holes. This rim is just bigger. And it's also what they call suede leather or Alcantara, which is grippy, but doesn't have like any sort of padding whatsoever. The best thing about this rim is that it is inexpensive. The stitching is, you know, of reasonable quality. The application of the suede leather is sufficient. It just doesn't have a whole lot of squish. And sometimes you get Alcantara with some padding, and that's nice, but this thing, stiff. I don't know if it's plastic underneath, and you know, obviously I'm not going to open it up to find out. But one of the things that can be super annoying with Alcantara is as you use it, and as you're using it with gloves, or if you use it without gloves, don't do that. Your hands and oils and stuff will modify this, and you'll get to the point where you have to brush it, you have to clean it, and that's kind of a no-go for a lot of people. But a lot of people will really enjoy the texture of this, so that can be one of those things where you decide, oh, I really need a rim, I like rubber, the GT0 is a great rim. Or you might say, I want something bigger, I really like Alcantara, I just, and I have the means to maintain it. This is a really great option if you just need something inexpensive because you already have 10 rims for your button box of choice and you just wanted to get the GT0 to add to your collection. This is something that I would sell to you, but I don't think that it's worth me letting go of it. Sometimes you just need something bigger. If you're using the GTB Pro, you know that the top of the button box sits a little higher. So with a bigger rim like this, it feels less, off center. So you don't need something to kind of change the position of the button box. Really, really, really great option to have in your wheelhouse. But this is not one that I really use frequently. Set this down somewhere. Really should find a way to mount bare rims. This is the Sim Racing Bay. I believe they call it, can't remember. I like it though. It is rubber, and rubber in the traditional, silicone sense. This Sim Racing Bay wheel is available both in steel like this, and you can also get it in carbon fiber. So, this also steel, very stiff, no real flex there. This, very stiff, no real flex. However, if you are concerned about weight, I think the difference is like maybe, I don't want to give you numbers to be wrong, but think about an entire wheel being 2,000 kilograms, which would be heavy. This rim might be 25% of that, so say 500 kilograms. If you want something lighter, you might say, oh, I don't like either of these, I want to get this in carbon fiber. So if you take a look at the rim that I was currently using with the GTB Pro, this thing is carbon fiber in the middle, so little bit of flex there. Nothing that's going to affect the way you would use the wheel, but definitely lighter, which I think is important to some people, especially if you have like a 5 or maybe an 8 Newton meter ish wheelbase. You compare that to the Zero Rim. The Zero Rim is steel. The Zero Rim has rubber, but it's polyurethane. And I think the SRB competition rim is the competition rim version 2. So as you compare these, they're about the same size. They are very similar. It's just that this texture on here is nice. It's smooth enough that you can wear it with gloves. It's a little textured, so if you're not wearing gloves, you can slide your hand, but still grip where you need to. The SRB rim is different. It's thicker. It's bigger in diameter of the grip. So if you have larger hands, it's nice, but you get all the things that come with silicone with that. This is probably one of the first and one of my favorite open top rims. The Zero just becomes necessary when you have these flick switches. It's visually striking. I do like it. The SRB rim is a little bit plain. So, little things that matter, those matter. The Zero Rim is great. I think, you always have options, which is one of the best things about accessories for sim racing. So, should you get the Zero Rim if you find it cheap? Yes. Should you get the rim if it costs $290 on eBay? No. I think, as you look at Cube Control's lineup, this is one of their staples. You can also get the button box with a round rim, a D-shaped rim, and you can get that in Alcantara. You can get it in actual perforated leather. You can get it in this polyurethane. And I don't know if polyurethane is available in anything other than the Zero Rim, but I do think that it is a great option if you buy it by itself. You can put it on any rim, and I think you'll enjoy it. So that's it for this. We'll call it a review recommendation for the GT Zero Rim in a comparison with different types of gloves. If you are looking for an open top rim and you happen to see this on eBay, go ahead and pick it up if you can justify its cost. If you see it cheap, someone's selling it probably because they have this and they only use one wheel type and they want something that's a more rounded rim. Shame on them. They should just keep it so they can swap when they want. This has been MV Pittman Cross Sim Racing. I'm Marlon, and I hope you have an excellent day. Thanks.